If you're from Eastern Australia, you've probably seen a common ringtail possum. You know, they're those super fluffy, nocturnal critters you might find munching on leaves in the backyard. They seem to be absolutely everywhere. But that's really only half the story. The other half? Well, that's a genuine scientific mystery.
So here's the central puzzle, right? While these possums are thriving along the coast, in other parts of the country, they're in serious trouble. So what on earth is going on? To figure it out, scientists had to go on a mission to uncover what was on their secret menu.
Okay, so the very first step in this whole investigation is to really get our heads around the core problem. The story of the ringtail possum is, believe it or not, a tale of two completely different populations.
Stick to the coast of New South Wales, and yeah, the possums are doing great. They're everywhere. But then you head inland, out towards the western slopes and plains, and it's a totally different world. We know from historical records they used to be all over the place out there, but now those populations have just plummeted or in some cases vanished completely.
And this is a massive problem for conservation. I mean, you can't possibly protect an animal if you don't even know what it needs to survive, right? For these struggling inland possums, the most basic information, like what they're actually eating and what kind of trees they depend on, was just a giant question mark.
So, to crack the case, a team of researchers geared up and headed into the field. You can basically think of them as wildlife detectives, on a mission to gather clues and piece together the secret life of these mysterious inland possums.
Their whole investigation zeroed in on this one spot called Black Rock Ridge. Now picture this. It's an isolated strip of native forest, kind of like a little island of original habitat, completely surrounded by a sea of cleared farmland. Its isolation makes it this perfect, self-contained little world for figuring out exactly what these possums need to make it.
So here was their game plan, broken down into 3 steps. First, they'd head out at night, using big spotlights to find the possums and carefully record which trees they were hanging out in. Step 2 was all about evidence collection. And the key piece of evidence? You guessed it, possum droppings, or scat, which they collected from right under those very same trees. And finally, they took all that evidence back to the lab for some pretty serious forensic analysis.
The main technique here is called microhistological analysis, which is, and I'm not kidding, basically CSI for wildlife. They take the scat, they break it all down, and they stick it under a microscope. See, every plant has a unique cellular fingerprint. So by identifying all the tiny, undigested bits of plants, they could literally reconstruct the possum's exact menu, piece by tiny piece.
So after all that work, what did our poop detectives actually find? Well, the results started painting a very, very interesting and frankly surprising picture of what was on a possum's dinner plate.
Okay, so the data showed a clear preference for a few specific trees. Their diet was dominated by 2 types of eucalypts, red stringybark and bundy box. But take a look at that third slice of the pie, black cypress pine, making up a whopping 17% of their diet. And that little detail, that was going to turn out to be the key to the whole mystery. And you know what? The sighting data back this up completely. The trees they were spotted in most often, red stringybark and bundy box, were also the top 2 things on the menu. This connection was so strong, it told the scientists they were definitely on the right track. The possums weren't just taking a nap in these trees, they were actively chowing down.
But let's go back to that third ingredient on the menu, the black cypress pine. Because this is where the story takes a really fascinating and totally unexpected twist. 17%, I mean, that's a really significant chunk of your food source. And what makes this so wild is that no other study of ringtail possums had ever recorded them eating cypress trees, ever. This was a brand new discovery. And here is the twist. Cypress pines are well known for containing chemicals that are potentially toxic. They're a defense mechanism to stop things from eating them. So why on earth were these possums eating so much of it?
To get this, you have to know that possums are already pretty tough customers. Their main food, eucalypt leaves, are famous for being low in nutrients and just packed with defensive chemicals like tannins. Possums have evolved these incredible adaptations to handle some of those toxins, but not all of them.
This led the researchers to a really cool hypothesis. What if, in this specific, really tough inland environment, the possums at Black Rock Ridge have actually developed a unique ability to detoxify the chemicals in the pine? That would give them access to a reliable food source nobody else can touch, a massive advantage for surviving in such a harsh place. So this amazing discovery does way more than just solve a little dietary puzzle. It gives us critical clues about how we can actually help these vulnerable populations hang on in the future.
What this really shows us is that animal diets can be way more flexible and locally adapted than we ever thought. To save these possums, we can't just use a one-size-fits-all plan. We have to protect the specific trees they rely on in this area. That means the red stringybark and, you guessed it, the black cypress pine. It's proof that you absolutely have to understand local ecology to make conservation plans that actually work.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. As the researchers themselves put it, this small study provides vital new data. It's just a perfect example of how hyper-focused local research can have a massive impact on how we understand and protect a species. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? The secret to this possum survival was literally hiding in its poop, just waiting for someone to find it. It makes you think, how many other species out there have their own unique tricks and hidden survival strategies that we know absolutely nothing about, locked away in these tiny, precious patches of the wild?